Hi, this is Ava from Soul GPS. Welcome to my channel. Today I am continuing answering questions that I receive under my YouTube videos. I have collected several here on a piece of paper, and I like to come to you from in my living room couch. I hope you like this new format. So it's a little bit less lecture, a little bit more, I like to call it conversation, even though I know it isn't a conversation because I can't hear you guys. But still, I feel like you're a little bit closer. And of course, I invite you to the dialogue in the comments below to answer, to ask me questions, and also to answer the question that I will ask you towards the end of the video. So let's jump in. Today's question was, what is the role or impact, I would add, of society and culture on our personal relationships? This is a very broad, extensive, and deep topic that there's no way I'm going to be able to answer. Of course, give it justice in the 15 minutes or so of time that I have here. But at least I hope I'll get the process going. I hope I'll make it thought-provoking so that you can take some of the highlights from this video inside and continue the dialogue or the exploration or the inquiry within, and if you feel inclined to share it with us here as well. So in a nutshell, the impact of society on our personal relationships and on ourselves, and we form those relationships, we are the ones who are deciding, is huge. And I think some of it is conscious, but a lot of it, if not majority of it is subconscious, because we are swimming in our culture. We're swimming in the ideologies and ideas and philosophies and concepts that are put forth by our society, put forth by our culture. It's kind of like a fish swimming in the water. It doesn't know it's in the water, right? Because we're so used to it. And of course, culture is evolving. It's like a living organism that's made out of all of us dialoguing with each other. And it's changing, it's evolving, but it's relatively stable because it also involves such a huge amount of people, and it's getting disrupted every here and then, and it can be disrupted by constructive, enlightening ideas. That's when it's good. It can also be disrupted by malicious actors from psychops, from other nation states that are trying to, destroy the Western culture and somehow criticize it and say that it's worthless. We're dealing with that right now, actually. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about actually on a personal level, inspiring you to ask yourself a question: how does culture and society in which you live impact you and your choices? Because it's going to be a little bit different for everyone. For everyone, different things will be more relevant. So I think it's worth pondering the question and seeing specifically what is important for you. Because there will be positives and there will be negatives. It's both. And you're going to have to be the one to decide. So through this video, I'm hoping I can highlight some of the things that I think are positive and some of them that are maybe negative. But again, it's really all up to you. You're going to have to be the one to discern. And this just comes from me. I'm just a single individual. I like to do a lot of research about this, but there's no way that I can give you any, synthesize it all, so I'm not your oracle. You're going to have to take what I'm going to say with a grain of salt too, and continue doing your own research and see what feels right for you or not. I'm just here to inspire some ideas. So on the positive side, when it comes to the culture that we live in and its impact on relationships, I think that we can't deny the fact that we have freedom of choice in our culture, right? That's of course relatively speaking, because you may feel pressure from society or from the culture that you live in within this Western hemisphere. You may feel pressure to get married at a certain age, to to be a parent or not to be a parent. You may feel pressure when it comes to how to relate to your parents at a certain point in your life. What kind of relationships are important for you? How do you treat the people that you date? It can be extremely broad. And yes, again, there is this influence, but we don't live in an oppressive culture where, for example, our parents choose our kids. Where our parents choose our spouses. Although, of course, there are exceptions. Some people do that, even though they live here in the West. But I'm just talking, of course, very much in general. So we live in a relatively liberal society. We also live in a society that offers us choice when it comes to our career, the kind of path we want to pursue in our life. So there's a relative amount of freedom. There's also the encouragement behind innovation and self-development. All of these things and the tools that we have as a result of that is all very constructive and very positive. On the negative side, we live in a culture and society that is moving at an extremely fast pace right now. The technologies that we have at our disposal, including the one I'm using now, also has its positives and negatives. The positive is that we're all now interconnected, but the negative is that so many of us can be so much vested in our technologies that we do not know. We've lost the ability to feed our personal relationships outside of the relationship, in reality, so to speak. So that's becoming challenging. It's also leading us to feel more lonely, feel more isolated from each other. Also, the amount of information that's coming at us through the fire hose, whether it's Twitter, whether it's YouTube, whether it's, you name it, channel. There's so much of it. It can be very, very easy to get lost in it. It can be very easy to lose track of what's real versus what isn't. And so all of this stuff has impact on us. Finally, we have social media, right? Which is, again, in one way, it's the positive side is that we're all interconnected. It can be so easy to stay in touch with your friends and see what they're doing, and also the people you love and admire, people who inspire you are within an easy reach. But it can be, again, incredibly overwhelming. It can feed narcissism in society because it's very much click-based. Whoever gets the most clicks is the winner, and can make other people feel left behind. It incites comparison, unhealthy comparison to other people. There's this big impact on the image, what kind of image you portray, which is similar with narcissism because it's not about authenticity when it comes to how narcissists operate. They're generally not authentic at all. There are people who put on a specific persona that helps them achieve their aims. And that can be very much fed by, this kind of tendency can be fed by the culture of social media and self-promotion. So we're living in a society where all of these things are very much happening, and it can have big impact. And one of those impacts is speed. Everything is happening very quickly, so it can be easy to make mistakes, can be easy to make the wrong choice, to fall for a story that isn't real. It can be very easy to be confused. It can be easy to not know yourself very well because all these things require time and energy and dedication to understand who you are, to understand the world that you live in. It's not enough to read a headline or a tweet. You have to read some books. You have to spend some time with yourself. You may need to work with a therapist. So these things require time, and the culture we live in is like, no, there isn't time. You got to go. You have to earn, and you have to create this life, this packaged life, as quickly as possible. Because if you don't, then that means that you're not worthy. And actually in my work with people, I come across it quite often, especially when I'm working with women, although some men have stated that too, have told me that they too feel like they're behind. They too feel like they're not up with the race. But when they are racing, and I remember when I was doing it myself, I was in the race, and I kind of feel like my life is passing me by, like I'm not living authentically. But then if I drop out of the race and I slow down and I begin to live more authentically, I may feel the pressure to get back in the race because now I'm irrelevant. You see the kind of catch-22 it creates, right? If you're in, you're going to get exhausted, and you're essentially exposed to a lot of pressures. But when you step out, the pressure is still there. So how do you deal with it? So it's like I said, this video is meant to just or this answer that I wanted to give to this comment is just meant to inspire some of your own individual thoughts, to sit with it and think about what kind of impact do you feel coming at you from the outside that is having a negative impact on you. Because again, the positives we tend to take for granted since we live in this culture. We do have a lot of freedom. We do have free access to a huge amount of information, but oftentimes this information does not carry with it the kind of value that is right for us. That requires more search, more dedication, more soul searching too, to figure out what it is that is important to you. So I've made some notes here. This was actually inspired by, I quickly looked at this book, and that was written by Christopher Lasch about the culture of narcissism. I highly recommend reading this book. So these notes that I have here are inspired by this book that I read quite a while ago, but I do still remember some parts. One of those are the fact that what narcissism in our culture and in our relationships tend to do is take us out of context of history. And it is so evident right now in the world whether we look at the news, whether we watch random YouTube videos, like maybe even like this one. These things tend to be taken out of context and be concerned with what's happening here and now. In order to have a proper, in-depth perspective about both ourselves and the world, we need to ask the question, where did we come from? And why is the world the way it is on a historical perspective? Again, that takes time and dedication, but it's worth it, because this level of awareness will arm you with the knowledge of yourself that will make it much easier to set the right boundaries, which is an issue in a lot of narcissistic relationships, right? And a narcissist also is not concerned with the past or even the future very much, because for him what's important is what's happening now, how much attention it's able to get, and what can it get from you for as small of a price as possible that then can turn into a profit for himself or herself. So a narcissist doesn't care about who you are, where you came from. It's not concerned with it. It's just concerned with what it can get out of you right here and right now. So that's kind of what I wanted to say about this topic. Of course, we can expand it into the consumerist culture, talk about that, and objectification, which is very much visible on social media, not social media, but in dating apps, where we just look at the surface and decide whether somebody has value for us or not. The public discourse and the public sphere of making close relationships, new relationships, has been just about eliminated. These days, it really boils down to consumerism. It boils down to hanging out at a mall or going to a restaurant. These places all require, a financial transaction to occur. We don't have clubs. We don't have, I'm talking about more like game clubs, or places where people go to just hang out and discuss and have fun and play and interact. That even me talking about this right now, it feels like, how does this work? How was this, right? It's like, It's not present in our world today. In our world today, what we do is we go on the phone and we Snapchat and we Instagram with each other, right? And that is, while it's feeding this immediate need for connection, it's also creating a deep hunger for genuine connection, which seems to be, I don't want to say completely disappearing, because that's not the case, but it's vanishing. It's not, that's the same. It's waning. There's less of it. And as I look at the younger generations who are raised on social media, are raised on phones, I really do worry, because I remember when I was a kid and when I had to go to school and make my first relationships with children, I remember how difficult and awkward it was. And now this awkwardness can be alleviated by the use of a telephone, because you don't have to be then standing in front of somebody and interacting with them. You can just send them a text message. It's much easier, it's more appealing, but then it may lead, I don't know, time will show us, it may lead to more people not being able to form meaningful relationships because they just don't know how. So I'm going to leave it at this. I look forward to your questions and your comments. If you like this video, please give it a like. I would greatly appreciate it. I too like to get those occasional bursts of dopamine. And yeah, and let me know. Oh, here's the question. Yeah, I was going to ask you a question. And the question is, what kind of impact on you does society and culture have when it comes to choosing your relationships? And if you could both say what is the positive side of it and the negative. And if you just have one or the other, that's fine too. But I'd be very curious to hear from you. Again, thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to catching up with you in the next video. Bye-bye.